You might have heard about this DC 20 system. It's kind of making waves, people are quite excited. It has some interesting ideas, but I don't think it will replace my love for official D&D. But let's take a look. We might not get through all of it in this video. So this is just the alpha or whatever. It's the free rules download hypothetically. Yeah, I could have just said playtest, I suppose. So with just 4 attributes which control your personality and your abilities, it's a little bit more streamlined. There are many D&D conversations about which is wisdom, which is intelligence, what's the difference essentially. So constitution's disappeared and wisdom has disappeared as regards D&D, which is going to be the viewpoint I take. So it breaks down easily into physical things, your might and your agility, your strength, your dex, and your mental side, your intelligence, your charisma. It says here, strength of body, balance, nimbleness, dexterity, reasoning, understanding and wisdom, charm, persuasiveness, force of will. So you see here it says your might is added to your maximum hit points. Yes, it is constitution as well. So agility is added to your physical defense. Charisma is added to your mystical defense, so there's a physical defense and a magic defense. Intelligence saves are made to resist effects that read your thoughts. A standard array here of 3, 1, 0 and -2, because there's no table to work out what your modifier is. That is it. You start with -2 in all your attributes and gain 12 attribute points. You can't go up more than 3 maximum in each of your scores, and as you level up, that limit increases, so you can have +4 in something, you can have +5 in something. Your prime modifier is your strongest thing. Is it might? Is it charisma? And whatever your attacks are made with, it's made with your prime modifier. It's up to you to decide how that works in the story. You know, I'm fighting with my intelligence. You're quick-witted, you're a tactician, strategist. You know, you make it work. Has the breakdown of what falls under which things. Goes deeper into what comes under what. It's all fairly standard. Vehicles, lockpicking, cartography. There's languages, fairly standard once again. Now, I believe this is like Pathfinder, your mastery level, novice, adept, expert, master, but Grandmaster is added. You get a +10 to your Grandmaster skills. So there are ways to progress, basically, in your abilities and combat, everything else, as you would expect from a role-playing game. Now, checks and saves. A flat check would be your roll a d20 and you add your certain attribute, might, charisma, intelligence, whatever. Attacking. So a d20 plus whatever your strongest one is and then how good you are at it. Let's say, I might have an example actually. d20 plus 3 plus 1. Spell checks, the same. And making a skill check, you just add your skill mastery. Character sheet and the DM will tell you what to do. Very similar, that passive skills is 8 plus a bonus, D&D. Death saves. Roll to 20, if the result is 10 or higher, it succeeds on a death save. So you've got physical saves, mental saves, and death saves. So it talks about spells can deal both damage and impose an effect on its target. Just like spells that make you paralysed. You take the damage and then you're paralysed. I believe you make a save against both. One will be physical damage, the next will be mental save against the condition. Now, you stack advantage or disadvantage. So you can be rolling 3 d20s, 4 d20s, taking the highest, taking the lowest. And they cancel each other out if they're stacking. So there's also degrees of success and failure. If the DC to hit a goblin is DC 10 and you do 15 to attack, you've done a level of 5 above. So that counts as like an extra success. You either roll an extra damage dice, you either get like a +1 to the damage for that extra above 10, or if you're moving somebody, you move them an extra square 5 feet. And so if you were looking to get 10 but got 20 or 30, the increases in 5s is shown by the outcome. You draw a weapon as part of an attack made using it. Melee, Ranged. Close quarters. A creature has disadvantage on ranged attacks when an enemy is within 5 feet. All the same. Physical defense. Bludgeoning, cold. Corrosion, which is acid. Fire, lightning, piercing, poison, slashing. Shields. You add a shield bonus. Imagine it's +2. Damage reduction reduces the damage equal to the DR value. A heavy hit, 5 over defense, bypasses DR and deals full damage. Physical damage reduction protects you from the following types of damage, alright, and mystical is the other psychic, yeah, alright. So a little nuance in the attacking there. Health points are not as high as D&D. That might be quite a shock. The health threshold, blooded, you understand, half its HP. Well-blooded, quarter of its HP, and death's door, equal or lower than 0 HP, because you can go to slightly under 0. If your death's door threshold is -3 and you take a large enough hit that reduces you to -3 or lower, you're instantly dead. When a PC is reduced to 0 HP, they are not unconscious. They're in a heavily weakened state, about to die. They can be crawling on the ground, holding themselves up, or spitting out blood. So if you're on fire and you're on 0, you don't actually incrementally take burning damage. But if you're over 0 HP, it will continue to get you down to death's door 0. So degrees of damage here. If you equal the DC, it's a hit, and you can do the base damage +5 of the AC to hit them. It's +1, 10 more is +2. So not massive amounts of additional damage. Damage types, resistances, and you round up. That is a notable difference. So shared damage, you can share the damage you do between 2 people, or maybe more. It's a 4 action point economy. In Pathfinder 2, I found that after a move and an attack, I couldn't do much else, but this gives you that extra 2 actions. And what is really good is that you can say, I spend all 4 actions on this very important attack. So you roll 4 d20s and take the best. That is one of the best things for me. Spells use mana points. You regain all spent mana points when you finish a long rest. Stamina points. This is where things get a little bit hard to keep up with. On your turn, you spend 2 action points to regain a stamina point, because when you're doing things you spend stamina. Grit points is how much you dig your heels in. You gain a number of grit points equal to 2 plus your charisma, your will to carry on. When you are hit by an attack, you can spend a grit point to reduce the damage by 1. I will not take that damage. But it's just quite a lot. It's maybe a little bit too much. You've started to just go over the easy section into... It's still a lot to think about. Minor actions, kind of like a free action. Standard action is an action. You spend an action point to attack, that's fine. You can then spend an action point to disarm or grapple. Shove, tackle, yep. Disengage, dodge, hide. Yes, help action. Analyze the creature so you know what to do next. Investigation, jump. Held actions, taking a reaction. Opportunity attacks. Spell duels. Area of effects. Nice wild magic table. That's good. You are stunned. You are blinded. Maneuvers. Okay. These cost action points also. Let's look at extend attack. You spend an action point, one of those 4 action points. Your melee attack range is increased by 1 space. Or your ranged attack is by 5 spaces for the cost of 1 action point. Here's an example. You have your 4 action points on a martial attack. 1 to take the attack action, 2 to trip, and 1 to knock back, so you can move the opposition around, trip them, hinder them, hamstring, body block, raise a shield, taunt. So there's a bleeding condition, dazed condition. It's a little bit of different systems all sprinkled into one. You can learn new techniques. Heroic Bash. Using a melee weapon, you can spend an action point and a stamina point to send an enemy hurling through the air. It's pushed back up to 3 spaces, plus 1 additional space for every 5 if it fails the save by. Tumble and dive, volley, whirlwind, spell casting, action points and mana points. 3 spell lists, arcane, divine and primal. Action points we know. Each spell has a mana point cost. You start off with 0 mana. Spellcaster class features bonus mana, so you gain mana points from a table levels 1 to 10. Cantrips and Rituals don't cost mana as such. Nat 1, your spell doesn't go off, but you still waste the action point. Components, verbal, somatic, material, concentration, cone, cylinder, yep. A 1 round of combat is 12 seconds. 5 rounds of combat is a minute. The moments leading up to combat greatly affect initiative. So you use the skill for initiative based upon what you were doing at the time. If you were like maybe animal handling an animal, then that is what you use for your initiative. If you were stealthing around, then that is what you will use at that precise moment. Insight check for 1 has raised a flag saying, I don't know about that. We'll see whether that funky way of doing initiative actually lasts. I'm not sure this has really solved much. Surprise, yep. Difficult terrain, the same. Falling, climbing, swimming, holding your breath, losing your breath, suffocation. Vision, line of sight, brightness, darkness. All the same kind of words we're used to. Micro up to Titanic. Collision, yeah, when you're knocked back into a wall or through a table, you take extra damage from that. I already do that. If you're knocked into a wall, it's D6. If you're knocked into something, D6 extra. Throwing creatures, throwing objects. Just the standard things that come up in a normal game of Dungeons and Dragons. So this is why I kind of don't see what we're really adding. I'm curious about the 4-action economy. I like the fact of rewarding people for beating the DCs by quite a lot. I like having more things to spend your action points on. Different kinds of shields and their properties. Shield bonus, +1 or +2. Healing potions. You heal 2 at first level because the health isn't a lot. Conditions, burning, poisoned, hindered, stunned, resting. 4 hours. 1 hour is a short rest. You can only have 2 in a day. Long rests, 4 hours and 4 hours. So half a long rest at the end of the first 4 hours, you gain the benefits of a long rest. At the end of the second 4 hours, you gain a long rest. Doomed. You lose all the doomed conditions, which I haven't yet seen. Some DCs, 15 being hard. The GM guide's in here. At this point I should say that I have backed this. I am getting this either way. What have we got here? I think this is how to build your character. Epic boon talent. Epic boon and talent. So what is good, my son pointed this out, that there is a pattern so that you can just follow it on after 20th level. The path is obvious of how you level up. So it's kind of infinite, really. There's no cap, which is great. Big tick. Love it. Legendary multi-class. Yeah, just talks about going further. It seems fairly straightforward with that. Ancestries. Not interested personally. Elf. Let's just look at the elf default traits. Advantage on checks against charm put to sleep. Dodge action. Full dodge action. Not affected by difficult terrain. Yeah, nothing groundbreaking. Which is why I always think, so why do I really need to actually have this as my main game? Natural weapons. So then we get around to classes. Tables for what you get. Barbarian. A rage. It's kind of the same, isn't it? Berserker. The bard. The cleric. Yeah. Classes. The wizard. Arcane points. Inscribing spells. Pre-made spells. Firebolt. Cantrip. Cost an action point. 10 spaces. 50 feet. You make a spell check against the physical damage of a target within range. It takes 2 fire damage. Or fire orb, a flickering flame in your hand. Stays there for 10 minutes. Harms nobody. Sheds light. Oh, so you can just use it as a light, basically. Bless, I saw. 2 action points, 1 mana point. Make a DC 10 spell check. You bless up to 3 creatures. They can add a D4. You know what we really gained? People are going about this, is a killer to D&D. It is D&D by another name, which, if you're really that against what D&D is right now, sure, you can do this. Tales of the Valiant does exactly the same thing. Ultimately, if there are things we can steal from this, then that's great. He seems like a lovely guy who made this, so more power to him. I look forward to the free adventure. That's where my heart lies. Keep pushing. I hope it does well. Let me know your instant thoughts.